All right, here we go. So, Dani, I'm so excited to chat with you. All right, I really just want to dive in, but let's do little introductions. So, this is my beloved client and friend, Dani. Actually, I've never even asked you how you pronounce your last name. I'm going to guess, and then you tell me how much I screw it up. Vinokurov?
Close. Yeah, Vinokurov.
Oh, okay. I just said it sort of awkwardly. All right. So Dani is an amazing artist. She's someone that I have grown to just love with all of my heart. She has had so much success this year in 2020 when so many people have had a lot of struggle. And so I wanted to invite her on to have a little chat about what her year has looked like, where she used to be, where she is now, and all the amazing things that she can share with anybody who's listening about what they can implement in their own life to see fantastic change. So, Dani, you give me an intro of who you are, and then we'll dive in.
So I am a mixed media collage artist and also a graphic designer. And I came to Libby about, it was just about a year ago, because we had our first little like heart to heart, and I was really struggling because I had lost my job earlier in the year. I just had a baby, and I just was emotionally just going through so much. I was also, at the time, I was the burden of the breadwinner of the family and struggling financially, and just really wanting to also become a full-time artist and sort of get rid of the design clients, because it wasn't bringing me any joy to do that, but I felt really trapped and frustrated. And when we started working together, I was also in a place where I will be very honest, I suffer from a panic disorder, and I had been in the ER several times. So I had hit rock bottom. And I can't believe, literally in a year from when I started working with you, where I've come. Like, it's just, I'm not the same person that I was a year ago.
I love it so much. Okay, so before I have a whole bunch of questions about that, but before we get into that, I want to paint a picture for everybody of where you are now, and then we'll kind of backtrack and fill in the gaps. So what has changed from that point? I mean, I think we started working together in January. I think it's been 12 months. Okay. So this is incredibly, incredibly inspiring, because I think a lot of people believe or don't have the belief that things can really change a lot in a year, and especially a year like 2020. A lot of people are kind of just throwing in the towel. Like, there's a lot of talk about 2020 is just shit, and it's really what we make it. But so I want you to paint a picture of what has changed. Where are you now with regard to your graphic design clients, your art, all the things, and then we'll backtrack.
Sure. So right now I'm figuring out a balance of the graphic design and the artwork. Oddly enough, I've actually come to a place where I'm appreciating the graphic design a little bit more. Whereas when I first started working with you, I was just like, I hate it. I don't want to do it anymore. And now I've really become much more at peace with the work that I do as a graphic designer. And also thinking about it in very different ways, thinking about it in a much more creative way than I was before. But the artwork for me has just exploded. I went from selling maybe a handful of pieces a year to selling almost on a weekly basis. And in the month of November, I sold on a daily basis.
We just talked about this on our call, because we just had our group call. I want you to share, how many pieces did you sell the month of November?
I sold 40 pieces in the month of November.
40 pieces.
Yeah.
And prior to that, let's talk, since we started working together in 2020, let's talk 2019. You may not have the exact number, but how many pieces do you think that you sold in 2019 total?
Total, maybe 6, somewhere between 6 and 10 pieces.
Maybe 6 to 10. Holy moly. Okay, so you sold more than 4 times the amount in 1 month that you sold in an entire year.
Yeah.
So that is mind blowing and so beautiful. So I want to, the big reason that I wanted to talk to you is because you weren't always at a point where you believed this was possible. And there's a lot of people who are listening who are really where you were a year ago. And this is also really interesting because you mentioned you had lost your job, and we haven't ever talked a whole lot about that, but a lot of people have lost their job this year. And I have worked with and talked with a lot of people who decided to pursue a creative business because that was kind of always their dream. And then life circumstances of 2020 kind of made it the timing because they lost their jobs. There's a lot of people that lost their job this year who are pursuing creative endeavors, who are really going after their dreams. And then there's this thing that happens when you're face to face, you get this burst of inspiration and excitement, and I'm going to go for it, and this is all possible. And then for most people, they come up against, well, wait, is this actually even really going to work? Is this actually even possible for me? Is this possible for anybody? Do people even buy art? So talk to me about, over the course of the year, what did that look like for you? You did not go in, you weren't in this is possible, I'm going to be a full-time artist the whole time.
No. And I would say for me, it was like a series of taking 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. And even in some cases, I would say 3 steps forward and 4 steps back, just in terms of my confidence. And I know, especially in the beginning, I had shown and had an incredibly successful show at the LA Art Show last year, selling almost everything that I had. And that sort of set off my year, and I was super excited. And then I completely derailed myself and just thought, it's not possible. I can't charge enough for the work that I'm doing. Nobody's going to buy the work. It's not sustainable. And I think working with you, I realized that it is possible. I had to take baby steps to get there, but it was just the small little tiny shifts to prove myself wrong, that I could to prove myself wrong in terms of that nobody's going to buy the work. I can't charge what it's worth. It was a series of actions of proving the opposite of that for myself.
I love this. So do you have any tangible examples that come to mind of the proving yourself wrong?
I want to say it came right around June of this year. You and I had a conversation, and part of it was this aha moment that when I'm on social media or on my newsletters or whatever, I never actually let people know my work was available for sale. Never. There was this assumption that if people wanted to buy my work, they'd just come to me and ask me, oh, is this piece available? And you and I had a conversation about how do they know that the work is even available if you don't tell them that it's available? And there was some stuff for me that came up in terms of that, sales mentality of asking for a sale felt really uncomfortable for me, saying that work was available. And so we had a chat about that as well, in terms of how do I show up authentically and ask for a sale in a way that felt really good to me. And it didn't feel yucky. It didn't feel like I was asking people to give me the world. And so I figured out a way of letting people know that the work was available, not necessarily even asking for a sale, just saying that the work is available. Just send me a direct message if you're interested, or email me if you're interested. And it was crazy. It was literally overnight that I started selling work almost on a weekly basis, just from that one simple change. And it made me realize that I cannot assume that people know the work is available if I don't tell them that it's available.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have so many assumptions that we just accept as fact.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes somebody outside of us to be like, nope. Because I can't even believe how many examples I have that in my own life. And still, I still on a daily basis see those in my world. Okay, so I'm really curious who you were in 2019. That person could have very well been like, I'm not making a whole lot of money. I'm in a desperate situation. My family depends on me. I have essentially a new baby. I just got laid off. I hate this graphic design work. I have dreams for being more. I have dreams for this like beautiful creative life, but I am just in a situation where that is not my current reality. And then you chose to invest not necessarily a small amount of money in working with me. So I'm always really curious, what was it you think so many people could have been like, well, I can't afford that. I can't afford to spend that money because look at the situation that I'm in. I need to figure this out on my own.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know two things. One, what led to that decision for you? And two, do you really think that you would have had the year that you had we not worked together? I mean, and it's okay for you to say yes. Also, I mean, I'm fine with people being totally honest. So tell me about that.
Well, I'm just going to answer the first question. No, I would not be the same. I would not have the success that I had this year had I not worked with you. Like working with you, it reignited passions that I had in myself that had fizzled out a long time ago. Like, you know, I think I had to just have faith that this was going to work because I was so desperate. And I think it can be a challenge for some people who don't want to put in the work, meaning like paying you all this money and then just sitting on my ass wasn't going to be something that was achieved. It wasn't going to work. I actually had to work really hard. And that meant, you know, on our weekly homework that I would do, like really diving deep and having these really profound breakthroughs. And it's not easy looking at yourself and looking at the things that you don't like about yourself and asking yourself, well, why do I continue to show up in this way that makes me feel miserable every day? It's not comfortable putting that magnifying glass on that. And there were a lot of times, and I would say weeks on end, that I think I cried every single time we had a meeting because I was just doing the hard work. And unfortunately, the hard work brings up a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I was able to work through it.
Yeah.
I think because I just persevered, you know?
Yeah. Well, but what gets you through that? Because sometimes during that hard work too, it also can feel like you're slipping backwards.
Yeah. I think knowing that I had you to count on every week in terms of you and I would have these conversations. We'd talk about the breakthroughs that I was having. We would talk about, you know, getting to those deeper why questions, that I was feeling certain things or experiencing certain things. That consistency of showing up every week was really, really helpful. And I also have to say, I'm very lucky. I have a partner, my husband, who was there for me the entire time, and he and I would have hard conversations about why I was feeling certain ways, and having that outlet was it was important. I needed it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. A lot of times we can have all the tools, but emotionally, especially creatives, I find, like for myself and most of my clients, are very in touch with their emotions, or maybe not even in touch isn't the right word, but experience emotions very strongly.
Yeah.
And not processing those and working through those is one of the biggest things that will hold people back, because if we want to avoid experiencing that, then we avoid the breakthrough that is on what's on the other side.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am curious. So you mentioned that one small shift about letting people know that your work was available. That's a small, like, outside shift. What are some of the inside shifts that have come along with all of so, like, you know, I'm tempted to ask questions like, what's the one big change? And I think that anybody who's gone through this level of change knows that it's not one big change. There's never like one big change. It's a series of tons of tiny micro shifts that happen if you've experienced a lot of shifts, it's like over and over and over. They just shift and shift and shift. So what the outside things that we see are, we see she went from, 6 to 10 sales in a year to 40 sales in a month, and increased income, letting go of your graphic design clients. Like, we haven't even gotten into, you are working for an agency that was causing a lot of frustration, that you felt really undervalued and you could let them go. So those are all the outside things. Because we know that the inside things come first. What are a few of the biggest inside shifts?
So I think for me, one of the biggest inside shifts, and it was a realization for me that I was not showing up the way I needed to show up for the artwork. Here I was working as a graphic designer, and I started my day as a graphic designer. So it was no wonder that, by pushing off the artwork to the back burner and working nights and weekends only, there's no way I was ever going to achieve any kind of success with the artwork by pushing it off. I needed to make some sort of a change where I was showing up as a professional with the art for it to sort of take off and be much more successful for me. And you and I had a conversation. This was right around the time that I had made the jump about asking for the sales. Was, why am I not starting my day, even if it's just an hour, even if that hour is constantly interrupted by husband and toddler and phone calls, whatever, but that first hour of my day is all about artwork. And for me, that was so monumental, because now I treat the artwork, even in some cases, more professionally than I do my graphic design clients.
That is a huge
show up that first now, and not my design clients.
We haven't talked about this since you've been in the group program. This is really, really, really big. So we have talked about this kind of like skirting around it, because in Plenty of Money, we've talked a lot recently about your identity, who you believe yourself to be, and how that actually influences who you become and your results in your life. So before, you did not feel like a professional artist. Do you feel like one now?
Yes.
And what's so beautiful about that is, like, the belief comes first, but the belief can also be a little bit shaky as you're proving yourself right. So then the consistent sales kind of reinforce the part of you that believes that you are, and slowly the part of you that doubts kind of gets eaten away. Is that how you experience it? That's how I experience it.
Yeah. And I think there's also now a level of trust in myself that I'm doing the right thing, versus constantly derailing myself. Like, oh, I need a new website. Oh, I need to be doing this. And it really is it just came down to, all I need to be worrying about doing is making and asking. And for me, the asking just so happens that it's on Instagram and my email newsletter. And that's it. That's all I focused on this last year. And that for me is huge, because I'm definitely one of those types of people, like, oh, I'll make more sales if I have a better website. Oh, I'll have better sales if I do X, Y, and Z. And you and I had, again, another conversation, and it was all about only doing the things that directly make me money, that directly move the needle, instead of like these grand ideas that take me away from doing all the things that actually are like positive for me, which was making artwork and asking for the sale.
Yes. So that is giant. I feel like a lot of people need to rewind and listen to rewind. That makes me sound like a child of the 80s cassette tapes. I guess you maybe still call it rewind, backup. I don't know. Anyways, so I hear this from so many people. Well, a lot of people know that they have like a focus problem, but a lot of people believe that their problem, like if they're wanting to make more money and wanting to sell more and wanting to sign more clients or whatever they do, there's all these thoughts of things that they need to work on that aren't directly related to making money. And branding, websites, like, I don't know. There's a lot of those are the main ones that I hear, but I hear, or like my audience isn't right. Like I need to get more followers. Like I hear these things all the time. And I know from personal experience that those things aren't the answer to this money and sales problem. They can sometimes help build confidence for sure if you have a really crappy looking website and you want to feel better about your website. But if at the end of the day, you really want to improve your financial situation and you want to grow a successful creative business, those things don't matter as much.
No,
They really don't.
no.
Because I can tell you from experience, in the past, I've been sitting on a gorgeous website with all the talent in the world and no money coming in. And that is true of so many people that I talk to.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to shift quickly. We're going to go just a tiny bit longer. So we worked together, just to give people a little bit of background insight. We worked together one-on-one for 6 months. And then at that point, I noticed, this is actually, you'll get a little sneak peek into how Plenty of Money even evolved. I had a large chunk of my clients who were really making good progress in sales and growing into the person that they want to become and seeing all the results and meeting their goals, but still had this issue of not feeling like they were running a real business and still feeling like even though they were maybe making more money and seeing more success, it was this like fleeting, like the money would come and then it would go. And it didn't feel sustainable. And a lot of people, I kept feeling like they were like, still, even though they were experiencing these amazing results, still felt really kind of defeated.
Yeah.
And I came to see that that was because there was a lot more happening under the surface than getting the sales and the clients and the money coming in as like one piece of the puzzle. Because if you don't have the right money mindset and have the right structures and have the right thoughts behind it in your business and your personal life, you can still feel very frantic and desperate. And that frantic and desperate energy, like if nothing changes to change that energy, you're going to hold on to that energy. And then you're just going to be someone who sells more, but still is kind of in this like unstable place where it's just like, people would say like, I just feel like I can't hold on to the money, or like, it's just, I don't know where it goes. So as in response to that, I created Plenty of Money. And it really was to go deeper with people's money relationships, what they did with the money when it came in, how the money flowed from their business to their personal life, all of that, so that people could really get out from under this like kind of trap of feeling like always sort of stuck at the bottom, if that makes any sense. So that's why I even came up with a program. And then I invited the people that I thought would be a good fit. So I invited you. So I'm curious to know, can you give us, you don't need to talk like tons of details, but where were you at like with regard to all of that? I know at one point we talked about like saving money for taxes and all of those sorts of things. So where were you before that program started in July? And where are you now with your relationship with money?
Yeah. So I was an absolute financial mess when I first started. Plenty of Money, because my business and my personal were all tied together. Like it was just completely just one big pile. I did have some sense of where I was spending my money, but I was always spending outside of my means. My credit cards were maxed out. And it just felt like, yeah, I was starting to see more money come in, but it was just like, as soon as it came in, it just poof, went into just the ether. And then working with you in this group, I was able to sort of set up some systems, and I have actually pulled the business side and the personal side apart. Now, the personal side, I will admit, is still a little bit like chaotic and crazy. But the business side, every time I log into my account and I see where everything's coming in and everything's categorized, I'm not scared to look at my finances anymore. Whereas before, like every time, like every week when I would balance a checkbook and I looked at, making sure where we spent our money, I would just literally shut down mentally, emotionally. Now I can see where things are coming in. And, I went through this exercise too, where I started just like chopping out like all these extraneous expenses that I had. And at first I was like, oh, that's going to make me feel just so awful to like cut off Netflix and cut off Amazon Prime and all these things. But it was crazy because it actually had the opposite effect. I actually felt so much more abundant by cutting those things out. And now I'm in a place where I'm starting to slowly integrate some of those things back in, because I can see financially that, yes, I can afford to spend $12.99 a month now, whereas before it just was just such a huge financial mess that it actually took cutting all that stuff out to be able to sort of get a little bit more clarity where I was spending my money.
Absolutely. And you also, if I remember correctly, you have switched from living off of credit cards to not, right? Am I correct?
Yeah. The last few months, I haven't used my credit cards at all. And that feels really good.
Yeah. So if you had to compare, actually, I mean, do you think that was just putting the systems in place and like clearing, like just getting honest and being like, I got to get in here and figure this out? Or was it, there more internal shifts that have happened?
I think part of it for me was the systems. I had already come in with some of my own systems in place, just knowing where I was spending my money. But I think it also took like, for me, like feeling abundant, even though I wasn't spending, which is a weird concept because you usually think like, oh, I'm going to treat myself to X, Y, and Z, and that's going to make me feel abundant. But actually feeling abundant because I was saving for the first time. Like I was actually putting money away for taxes, which the last year I didn't do. I just couldn't afford to do it. I was so strapped. And then of course, having to pay taxes was not fun. So now I'm actually stocking away money so that I can actually pay my 2020 taxes.
Which feels so good, right? So I think that there's this misconception before you've gone through this transformation, because I can speak to this because I've gone through this really personally, which is why I even felt so compelled to create it as a program, because I know so personally the way that it feels to sit down, to pay your bills, to do your bookkeeping, whatever that is for you, open your bank account and just feel like this heart sink, like, oh, like when is this ever going to feel good? We never have enough. I never have enough, like all that kind of conversation. And from that place of lack, there's this like, I'm unable to buy the things that I want. I'm unable to have the things that I want. There's this like scarcity of like, I need more. When you get to the other side of it, so there's this idea that abundance is like, I can buy whatever I want. That's the way that abundant feels. And it's exactly what you're saying. It's almost the opposite. It's like, I can buy whatever I want, but I maybe don't want to anymore. And it's very confusing until you've gone through it. It really is.
Yeah.
Or it's also the difference between, when I buy this, it's really, really fun and feels very satisfying and very gratifying, because I know that this is the right choice and it feels good and I can support it and I'm supporting it myself.
Yeah.
Instead of, I hope this works out. Right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of where spending can come from when you don't really know what's going on. So, okay. So I have probably 2 more questions. In Plenty of Money, we have kind of 4 categories of the things that we talk about. The first one is organizing your money. The second one is creating money. The third one is having money, holding on to it, and then conscious spending. So remind me, because I can't completely remember, and then we rank where you're at the beginning on a scale of 1 to 10. So I want you to tell me, and we haven't even done this. This is a little surprise for me. So let's see, if we start with organizing money, which is the systems we're talking about. Do you remember what you were at the beginning on a scale of 1 to 10?
Gosh, I think I was pretty high. I think I was like a 7 or an 8. I
Yeah.
felt like when I came in, I had a pretty clear idea of where I was spending my money.
Yeah. And I remember you had a lot of tracking that was going on, but not a lot of effective tracking.
No.
You would spend a lot of time putting money into spreadsheets that weren't benefiting you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we're talking about in your business, what are you now on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'm a 10 for sure.
Awesome. Okay. The next one is creating money. What do you think you were at the beginning? Do you remember?
Gosh, I want to say it was like a 4 or a 5.
Yeah. So for people that are listening, creating money means feeling super confident in your own ability to create money on demand, that it's not like a fluke that money is coming to you, that it's not like luck, that it's like, you know how to create money and you can do it when you want to. So you were maybe a 4 or a 5. What are you now?
I'd say I'm probably like an 8. No?
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. What do you think it would take to get to a 10?
I think for me, it would take, I feel like just making just a little bit more, like that leap to like the next goal that I have for myself financially.
What's the next goal do you have for yourself?
I would like to get, I mean, if I'm being real, I would love to get to 10K a month.
Okay.
I'm not there yet.
Okay. You
I
will
got
be.
some work to do.
You will be. You're well on your way. Okay. So let's see. The next one is having money, your ability to feel comfortable having money. So in the group, the conversation that comes up around this, the way that I like to talk about it is the thoughts that we have about people that have money. Do we feel comfortable being wealthy? We actually exchanged some emails post this call because you were one of the people that came back and said, maybe I don't want to be rich. Because I asked the question, who wants to be rich? And you're like, it's complicated. And that was probably the most honest answer in the group, because I really do believe that that's true. It is complicated. So what do you think that you were when we started on a scale of 1 to 10, having your ability to have money versus now?
I think it was a 2 or a 3 when I started. And now I still feel like that's a really loaded question for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I've made a lot more peace with it. So I would say that I'm probably like a 7 or an 8 now.
That's a big leap.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. And that's one that I think for some people is just, maybe some people will click and it'll change and people will be like, yes, I want to be rich. I've made, like I have no judgments towards the topic of rich and wealthy and all the things. And for some people, it might be something that you really come back to throughout your entire life of
Yeah.
like, what does that mean for me? Does it align with my values? Is that important for me, etc.? Okay. So the last one is spending. I think you were pretty high already on the spending because you were pretty conscious of, so consciously spending.
Yeah. So I want to say
got
a 7 or an 8 with
Yeah.
the consciously. And I would say I'm probably still about a 7 or an 8 with the consciously spending.
Okay. So my last question is, how has that shift in those numbers, having the system, feeling more confident and consistent with creating money, how's that shift reinforced or changed the way that you feel as a creative business owner and what's possible for your future?
I think for me, one of the biggest changes that I've experienced is there's a certain amount of guilt about making money doing something that I really love. And now I feel like I feel like that's the way that it should be. That people should make money from the things that they really love, and that it's not something for me to feel embarrassed about. I know I had like a twinge of feeling that like guilt over the success that I had in November. I participated in a 30-day challenge, and I sold 28 out of the 30 pieces that I made for the challenge. And some of my good friends were going to do a similar kind of challenge at the beginning of December. And there was a twinge of like hoping that they had the same success that I did, but also feeling guilty that I had so much success doing it for myself. But then like quickly sort of like, letting my like diving into that a little bit and being like, no, I deserved to be happy with the money that I made. I brought people a lot of joy. People were really inspired by the work that I was making, and just letting go of that guilt part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So what's the one piece, if you were talking to somebody who's where you were a year ago, what would you share with them? What's the one piece of advice, or what's your, I don't know, what would you say to somebody who's in that spot?
Gosh, I think particularly speaking to artists, I think that there's a couple of things. I think one is showing how you show up on a daily basis. I think that is such a huge part of it. But I think almost on the reverse side of that, and this is something that I struggled with too, was putting so much pressure on myself that the work had to sell. That was the only way that I was going to be able to make money and afford to do the things that I wanted. It actually took getting to a place where I was almost detached to the sale of the work. So I would make the work and it was coming from this really pure place inside of me, instead of making the work with the expectation that it was going to sell, that made the work sell. If that makes any
Yes.
sense whatsoever.
This is the biggest thing. And this is hard to, that like, for some people, hopefully, I hope that they hear that and are able to put that into practice. But for me personally, and the people that I coach, I found this is one of the hardest things for people to make the shift. Is we need to make our work from our heart, and then almost like sever ties, and then sell it from a business mindset almost.
Yeah.
Because the second that we start to make our results mean something about us is where it gets really muddy and can really derail people.
Yeah. And I would say too, when it stops resonating with you on a really deep level, it stops resonating with your target audience as well. They pick up on that. The moment you put all that pressure on yourself, but you're only making it for the monetary gain, is the moment that it won't sell.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I love all of this. I could talk to you forever, but we're at time, so I'm going to respect your time. And it has been just such a joy to watch you grow over this past year. I have like just so much excitement seeing you and thinking about where you're going next. I know in an email you said that you can't wait to see what 2021 has in store, and I just feel like anything is possible for you.
Yeah. And I feel that way too. And I couldn't be where I am today without working with you. It has been such an honor, and having you be a part of this journey has been just absolutely amazing. And I honestly, I cannot thank you enough for everything.
Oh, you're going to make me cry. I didn't even intend that. I really, really you are the epitome of diving into this work deep. Some people resist it, and you did not. And you did the hard work, and it's really paying off. And I just love watching it. So I hope that, I know actually that your story is going to be inspiring to people. For people that are like, ooh, I want to know more about you and your work, where's the best place to find you? Instagram?
I think Instagram right now is probably the best place.
Okay. So what's your handle?
My name, Dani Vinokurov.
Okay. Awesome. So everybody go check out Dani. Her work is amazing. You can also sort of do like a sneaky look into the way that she sells in a way that feels good for her. And have a wonderful day.
Oh, you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.